Hello and welcome. I'm Luke Bixler. This is the first edition of CBR Sports. Here we'll be looking at the different sports here at Cleveland High School, but of course, the biggest story of this week is the Bradley-Cleveland game. Cleveland really has a chip on their shoulder because for the past 4 years, Bradley has beat Cleveland by pretty good amounts. In the past, they've been pretty good games, but last year especially, I think the score is about 31-14. So they've been pretty good gaps, and so Cleveland really has a chip on their shoulder this year and really needs to step up to see if they can win. But who's going to win the game? And that answer it's not so simple because both of these teams are good in different ways. Bradley is freakishly athletic. I mean, all of their players are just strong, fast, they're big, everything like that. And Cleveland is more methodical. They plan out drives, everything like that. So Bradley, their quarterback, Javen Burke, he was at Cleveland his freshman year, transferred to Bradley. Now he transferred to Baylor, and then he transferred to Bradley his junior year. He's very athletic, as we said. His ability to run and everything is great. He can get out of the pocket. When he gets out of the pocket, he's super dangerous, and you can't catch him. He's big, he's strong, and he can throw so far. He has a cannon for an arm. He can throw probably a good 50 yards, which is really impressive, especially for a junior quarterback. And he has gotten about 200 yards per game. He averages about 200 yards per game. And then he has a really strong receiving core with Cannon Hall and especially Trey Curry. Now, Trey Curry usually has been the big story with basketball and football especially, but his statistics have really been down this year. He's only had about 60 yards per game, which for someone who's been so overhyped is a little bit low than what you'd like to see based on in past years. He's had a pretty low season. But Cleveland, on Cleveland's side, like I said, they're a little bit more methodical. So they plan out drives, everything like that, little shorter passes, a lot more runs, especially with Tito Boyd, his ability to cut, his strength, everything like that. There'll be smaller plays, not as big, explosive plays like Bradley has. They have a young quarterback in Gage Kinsey. He's a junior transferred from Walker. And that's one of the bigger stories at Cleveland, too, is their quarterback. Gage Kinsey has struggled a little bit this season. He has about 150 yards per game, but most of those yards are based off of just Robert Flowers, really. Robert Flowers is one of the star players of this team. He's a star wide receiver. Gage will throw up the ball, and he will just catch it in any place he throws it because he's tall. He's about 6'4", probably 140, 150. And he's so athletic, he's so fast, he's agile, he can just get right through those defenders for a score. He's the main player that's really saved Cleveland this year from losses that might have happened. He scored all the points of the Knox Central game that ended up being 50-21. He scored all three of those touchdowns along with an interception. And so he's the biggest story. And Gage Kinsey also has some receivers on his side that he could really utilize more. He has Clay McGowan and he has Durant Thomas, both really athletic guys. Clay McGowan also plays baseball, and Durant Thomas, I believe, plays basketball as well. And so those are some people that I'd really like to see him utilize more. Their ability to run down the field is great. Clay McGowan can catch. He's really reliable. He's not the fastest guy out there, but he has a lot of potential, and he's really reliable, kind of in the way that Robert Flowers is. If Gage Kinsey ever needs someone to throw to, he's always there, and he can always throw it to him. And so to see who's going to win this game, there's a lot of things that Cleveland needs to do if they want to break this losing streak. One of the biggest things is a very general statement, but stick with me. Their defense is one of the keys to this game. Now, the reason I say this is because Bradley is so explosive and they rely on bigger plays like bigger passes downfield, really long passes, big runs, things like that. And they need to stick to mainly man-to-man coverage especially. The reason I say that is because in past times, the way to stop Javen Burke would be to pressure him, make him run. He'd only get about a yard, and then he'd be down. But since his freshman year, obviously he has developed as an athlete and as a football player. His arm has gotten immensely better. He's a lot stronger. He's faster, and his decision-making is better, and he's just more athletic than he was. So instead of, in moments like that when he gets pressured, instead of running, now he throws it downfield to a receiver that is almost always open. And they're always open because they're so much more athletic and just better. And so Cleveland really needs to focus on man-to-man coverage, sticking to them, sticking to their man, and not letting them burn them. Aaron Jones, the cornerback for Cleveland High School, he already has about 3 interceptions on the year, one of those being a pick six. He has great potential. He just needs to play a little bit harder. And if he played harder against Bradley and he played the hardest he could, I believe that he could take Cleveland to that next level and help them win the game. Another Robert Flowers as well plays cornerback as well as wide receiver. He already has about 2 interceptions on the year too. And so they have a really good defensive backs that could really help them win this game, and that's what it's going to take. They need to stick to their man and make sure when Javen throws those long passes to be on him to break him up so they don't get those big explosive plays, because that's what Bradley feeds on. And then on the defensive front, they're going to have to play as hard as they have ever played. They have to pressure Javen. It is imperative, because if they don't get to the quarterback, he's just going to throw it downfield and the score will be 34-0 in the first quarter before you even know it. The defensive front needs to be more aggressive, be faster, stronger than they ever have been to get through that offensive line, or even just close in the offensive line on Javen to get him to make those bad decisions. Because when he gets pressured, what he does now is he just throws it downfield into double, sometimes triple coverage. And if you have that close man-to-man coverage when he throws those, they can get batted down or intercepted. Another key to this game is going to have to be the momentum that Cleveland gets. Bradley, if you look at their stats and all their other games, what has happened is that they get their points very early on in the game. They score 21, 13, 27 in those first 2 quarters in the first half. And so they need to stop them. They need to get those big stops. They need to get points on the board early so they can make sure they have the momentum to keep that rolling through the next half, because Bradley tends to slow down in the next half, and Cleveland in certain games has shown to pick it up more in the third quarter, just like the Hardin Valley game, scoring about 21 points in the third quarter. So that's something that Cleveland really needs to focus on, as well as on the offensive front. Gage Kinsey needs to get that ball off fast, because Bradley is athletic, like I've said before, and they're going to come at him hard, and he needs to get the ball off fast. And he has time to do that. The Cleveland offensive line has given Gage Kinsey an average of 5.2 seconds, which is plenty of time for him to get the ball off. It should be for any quarterback, really, especially with great players like Clay McGowan, Robert Flowers, and Duran Thomas, and Tito Boyd, and players like that he has the ability to catch and run everything like that. And that's another story. Tito Boyd is going to be another key to this game. He's very strong, and his cuts and his field vision are great. His ability to look at the defense, find the holes, find the different cuts, and how fast and well his cuts are very impressive. And he's going to be the key to this game, because Bradley's running game is good, but it's not to the level of their passing game. And so Cleveland needs to be more versatile with Tito Boyd and with these different receivers to be able to get that ball off fast to these receivers and hand it off the next play. Just do different plays, because in the past in different games, Cleveland has tended to really run it a lot and then rely on those big third down plays, like just long passes to Robert Flowers that they aren't good. And those plays can work against Heritage or Saudi Daisy, but they can't work against a caliber team like Bradley, who's fended well against teams like Farragut, who's a very upper-class, top 10, top 20 in the state, which they led the whole first half. In the end, it was 30-37, and they lost. But that's very impressive, putting up a team like Farragut, who, especially historically, has just been blown other teams out of the water. And those are really the keys that Cleveland has to focus on. Cleveland has the ability to win this game. They just have to play smart. They have to play harder than they ever have, put in smarter plays, spread out the playbook, different plays, different things like that. Cleveland has the ability to win this game, and they need to play smarter, like I said before, if they want to. And it's going to be a great game, it's going to be a great game, I think. I think Bradley's going to put up some great numbers, but I think Cleveland is going to be able to stop them. I think Cleveland's going to put up some great numbers. And in the end, we'll see who wins. It's going to be a really close game. it's either going to be really low scoring or really high scoring. It's either going to be an offensive battle or a defensive battle. And so we're just going to have to see the difference between that. But I'm really excited. Make sure you come out and watch this game because it is definitely going to be a show. Thank you for joining me on this first edition of CBR Sports. Make sure to come back next week for more updates on other sports. This one is a little bit last minute, so I didn't get the chance to look at other sports such as volleyball, soccer, different things like that. But as it progresses, as the show goes on, I'll be looking at all the different sports around Cleveland. So make sure to stick around next week for the next edition of CBR Sports. Thank you for joining me. I'm Luke Bixler.